The kingdom of Usumbu had always been blessed with fertile lands, lush forests, and rich rivers teeming with life. Its people lived in harmony, their lives centered around the great Baobab tree that stood at the heart of the village. This tree was said to hold the spirit of the ancestors, symbolizing wisdom, balance, and respect for the earth. But King Mandisa, a young ruler known for his ambition, was more interested in wealth and power than tradition. Usumbu's prosperity had made him famous beyond his borders, and merchants from distant lands brought him treasures in exchange for the kingdom's resources. He saw potential not just in the land's bounty, but also in the sacred baobab tree, whose wood and sap were rumored to have special properties. Despite the elders' warnings, the king was determined to exploit every inch of his kingdom, regardless of tradition. The king began by sending his men to gather timber from the ancient forests, sparing neither the young trees nor the old. Under his orders, the rivers were diverted to provide water for the new lands he had cleared for farming. Villagers watched in silence as the kingdom transformed, their homes now surrounded by stumps where trees once stood. Only the baobab tree remained untouched, as the elders continued to protect it, reminding the king of its importance to the kingdom. However, Mandisa's greed grew as his wealth increased. He began to view the baobab tree as a resource that was being wasted by standing untouched. After all, he reasoned, why should such a valuable tree be left idle when it could be turned into wealth for the kingdom? The elders begged him to reconsider, warning that tampering with the sacred tree would bring misfortune upon the land. But the king dismissed them as superstitious fools, blinded by old myths that had no place in his vision for Usumbu. Despite the elders' pleas, the king made plans to harvest the baobab tree. He called upon the kingdom's mystics, demanding that they lift any supposed curse that might befall him. But the mystics refused, insisting that the tree was not only a symbol but a connection to the ancestors who watched over Usumbu. Cutting it down, they warned, would anger the spirits and bring calamity to the kingdom. Furious at their refusal, Mandisa accused the mystics of attempting to keep him from realizing his ambitions. Ignoring the pleas and curses that followed, he ordered his men to prepare for the felling of the baobab tree. As axes were sharpened and ropes prepared, the villagers gathered at a distance, horrified at the king's defiance of their customs. The air grew heavy with an unspoken tension, and whispers of impending doom spread through the crowd like wildfire. On the morning the king's men approached the baobab tree, a strange darkness fell over the kingdom. Clouds gathered thickly in the sky, blocking out the sun. As the first axe struck the tree, the ground shook violently, sending people scattering in fear. Lightning crackled through the sky, striking the earth around the tree, and a deep, thunderous voice echoed, as though from the tree itself, "You have defiled the sacred, and you shall pay." From that day on, Usumbu was plagued by one misfortune after another. The rivers dried up mysteriously, leaving the new fields barren. A strange illness spread through the livestock, causing them to die in large numbers. The once fertile soil became dusty and unyielding, crops failed, and the people began to grow hungry. Despite his power, the king was helpless to stop the chain of disasters that had befallen his once prosperous land. As the calamities worsened, the people of Usumbu grew resentful. They blamed the king for angering the spirits and desecrating the land. Whisper rumors and open accusations spread like wildfire, and some villagers even attempted to reach the palace, demanding that the king reverse his actions. But the king, though shaken, refused to take responsibility. Instead, he ordered the palace guards to silence those who spoke against him, accusing the villagers of spreading sedition. Fearful of his wrath, the people withdrew, but resentment simmered beneath the surface. Mandisa's once loyal subjects now regarded him with suspicion and disdain, and the kingdom he had hoped to strengthen with wealth and power was crumbling under the weight of his greed. Haunted by guilt and desperation, King Mandisa sought the counsel of the mystics once more. This time he approached them humbly, pleading for a way to reverse the curse that had fallen upon his land. The mystics, after deliberating, told him that the only way to restore balance was to seek forgiveness from the spirits of the land and make amends for his greed. The people watched as he worked, and though many were still angry, they began to see a hint of sincerity in his actions. For the first time, the king acknowledged the power of the land and the spirits that had protected it. As weeks passed, and the people continued their efforts to restore the land, signs of life slowly returned to Isombo. The rivers began to flow once more, the crops grew in the fields, and the livestock regained their health. Though the baobab tree would take generations to grow to its former size, the kingdom began to heal. The people, though wary, saw that the king was working tirelessly to restore what he had destroyed, and some began to forgive him. In time, King Mandisa learned the value of respect not only for tradition and the wisdom of his ancestors, but also for the land and its natural resources. He realized that wealth and power could not replace the bond between people and nature. The story of his greed and its consequences was passed down for generations, a lesson for rulers and villagers alike on the importance of balance and respect for the earth. Years later, when King Mandisa had passed, the story of the baobab tree and the greedy king became a parable for all in Usumbu. Every year during the festival, the people of Usumbu would gather around the small baobab sapling, now growing tree, to remind themselves of the lesson Mandisa's actions had taught them. The elders would tell the tale of how a king's greed nearly destroyed the land, and how only through humility and respect could balance be restored. The kingdom of Usumbu continued to prosper, but never again did its people take the land's gifts for granted. They had learned that nature's resources were not meant for exploitation, but for stewardship and respect. And so the baobab tree grew tall once more, a living testament to the power of humility and the sacred duty to protect the earth for future generations. As the baobab sapling grew, so did a young prince named Amari, King Mandisa's only son. Amari had witnessed his father's transformation and the suffering the kingdom endured because of his father's greed. Mandisa had instilled in him the values of humility and respect for nature, reminding Amari daily of his responsibility to protect Yugoslavia and its people. When Mandisa passed, Amari ascended to the throne. His first act as king was to reaffirm the people's commitment to the land the sacred baobab. The villagers, hopeful yet cautious, watched Amari closely. Would he fall prey to the temptations that had misled his father? But Amari was different. He was diligent, humble, and wise beyond his years. He vowed never to repeat his father's mistakes, promising the people that he would protect Usombo's resources and honor their ancestral custom. Under Amari's rule, Usumbu entered a new era of growth and harmony. The fields were more fertile than ever, and the rivers flowed steadily, nourishing the crops and the people. Amari encouraged sustainable farming practices, teaching his people to only take what they needed and always to replenish the land. Usumbu became renowned as a green kingdom, known for its respect for nature. Merchants and travelers visited the kingdom to witness the rare harmony between people and their land. As prosperity returned, so did the people's pride and sense of unity. But Amari knew that prosperity could tempt even the most well-intentioned. So he reminded his people every year at the festival of the sacred Baobab, retelling the story of his father's mistakes and the kingdom's hard-earned lesson. One day, news reached Amari that the neighboring kingdom of Zuberi was struggling. Their lands were barren, and their rivers had dried up due to excessive mining and deforestation. King Zakai of Zuberi, an ambitious ruler, had no interest in balance or sustainability. He believed nature existed only to serve him, and his land had suffered as a result. Intrigued by Usumbu's prosperity, King Zakai sent emissaries to study the kingdom's practices. However, Zakai was not interested in respecting nature. He saw only an opportunity to seize Usumbu's resources for himself. Amari was wary of Zakai's intentions, sensing that his neighbors less about learning, more about taking. King Zakai soon visited Amari with a proposal. He offered wealth and military support In exchange for unrestricted access to Usumbu's fertile land, rivers, and resources, Zakai argued that Usumbu had more than enough to share and promised riches beyond Amari's imagination if he agreed to the partnership. Well, Bonai saw through Zakai's ploy. He understood that Zakai's greed would eventually drain Usumbu of its resource, just as it had done to Zubari. Amari refused the offer, citing his father's mistakes and the lessons his kingdom had learned. Zakai grew angry, accusing Amari of being selfish and foolish for turning down wealth. But Amari stood firm, telling Zakai that true wealth was not measured by material gain, but by the health and happiness of one's people and land. Furious, Zakai left, vowing that Usumbu would regret their decision. After the refusal, strange rumors began circulating in Usumbu. Spies from Zuberi spread fear among the villagers, claiming that King Amari's decisions were holding the kingdom back from true prosperity. They whispered that Amari was too cautious, that he could bring them unimaginable wealth if he just opened the kingdom to trade and manipulate Zuberi. Amari noticed a change in his people's attitude and grew concerned. He reminded them that prosperity was not only about wealth but about honoring their bond with the land. However, some villagers grew restless, beginning to question Amari's principles. Enraged by Amari's rejection, King Zakai decided that if he couldn't have Usumbu's resources through diplomacy, he would take them by force. He began amassing an army, preparing for a swift invasion. Spies soon informed Amari of Zakai's plans, warning him that Zubari's army was far stronger and more ruthless. Knowing his people's lives were at risk, Amari summoned his advisors and elders to strategize. They realized that if Zuberi's forces attacked, the kingdom's limited defenses would struggle to protect them. Rather than panic, Amari sought the guidance of the village mystics and elders, hoping to find a solution that would preserve both their peace and their prosperity. The elders and mystics gathered under the moonlight to offer Amari their counsel. They reminded him that Usumbu's strength lay not in its weapons but in its unity and respect for the land. One elder, who had seen the worst of wars, told Amari that Zubari's people suffered because their king took without giving back. Usumbu, however, could fight with the land as his ally. Before the plan was set in motion, the villagers gathered around the young Baobab tree, now nearly a decade old but still strong and sturdy. They performed a sacred ritual, asking the ancestors and spirits of the land to protect them from harm. The mystics chanted blessings, and each villager left an offering at the tree's roots, symbolizing their unity and respect for the land. As dawn broke, King Zakai's forces stormed the borders of Usumbu, expecting an easy victory. But Amari's people were ready, using the rivers and narrow forest trails to their advantage. They defended themselves without harming the land, choosing traps and diversions that led Zakai's soldiers into the depths of the forest, where they became lost and disoriented. Despite their lack of weapons, the people of Usumbu fought with courage and strategy, guided by the elders' wisdom. Zakai's forces soon grew weary, their strength sapped by the land itself. Seeing his army falter, Zakai was forced to retreat, leaving Usumbu untouched. The villagers rejoiced, knowing that they had won not by force but through their respect for the land and unity. News of Usumbu's victory spread across neighboring kingdoms. People marveled at how Amari's kingdom had resisted such a formidable force without compromising its values or damaging its land. Many leaders sought out Amari, hoping to learn the secret to his kingdom's resilience and harmony. In the wake of the victory, Amari gathered his people around the Baobab tree once more, offering thanks to the ancestors and the spirits of the land. He declared that Usumbu would forever honor its commitment to nature and never exploit its resources recklessly. Amari knew that their harmony with the land was their true wealth and strength, and he vowed to protect it for generations to come. The elders, touched by Amari's dedication, gifted him a staff carved from one of the baobab's fallen branches, a symbol of his bond with the land. It was a reminder that he was not just a ruler of people, but a guardian of Usumbu's spirit and balance. From that day, the staff became a symbol of leadership passed down to every new king of Uzambu, representing wisdom, restraint, and reverence for the land. Years passed, and King Amari grew old, his hair silvered but his spirit strong. The Baobab tree had grown tall and mighty, a living testament to the kingdom's resilience and the enduring wisdom of Uzambu's people. Children and grandchildren gathered under its shade, listening to the elders tell the story of King Mandisa's greed, the kingdom's near ruin, and the sacred vow that had saved them. Amari's legacy lived on through every villager who remembered the price of disrespecting nature. They cherished the land, honored the spirits, and celebrated the baobab as a symbol of resilience, unity, and wisdom. And as the baobab stretched its branches toward the heavens, it reminded the people of Uzambu that they were stewards of the earth, bound to protect its gifts and respect its sacred balance. Through the ages, the kingdom of Uzambu remained prosperous and at peace, its people living harmoniously with the land. And so, the story of the sacred baobab became more than a lesson, it became the lifeblood of the kingdom, passed down as a guiding principle, ensuring that future generations would never forget the power of humility, unity, and reverence for the earth.